Okay, so we had just gone through the library module. We made some collections and some collection sets. We've gone through and we've sort of organized things. And so now I've got some pictures that I've maybe given 3 or 4 or 2-star ratings, something that I sort of am into. So images that I think I want to go ahead and work on. So what I'm going to do is when I'm ready to go ahead and edit an image, I'm going to go into the develop module. And inside of the develop module, you're going to see our friend the histogram again. And then I'm going to have some adjustment tools like a spot removal, a crop tool, a brush, and a gradient. We're going to go back onto it. And then I'm going to have this basic tab. And I'm going to tell you that you can do about 89% of anything that you need to do in Lightroom in this basic tab. And I like to work this how it is in hierarchical order. So I work from the top of this down to the bottom of this. And so I start with the 3 main sort of components, which is color, exposure, and contrast. So if I look at this image, I think it's a little too blue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click onto the temperature, and that makes it blue and yellow. And I'm going to actually just press the up key. I can use the slider to slide this, but once I get it sort of fine-tuned, I'm going to use the up and down arrow keys to make that adjustment. And once I sort of warm it up a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to maybe drop the exposure on this and maybe increase the contrast just ever so slightly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a lot of what I need to do in this tool with temperature, tint, exposure, and contrast. Temperature is going to make things warmer or colder, yellow or blue. Tint is going to make things warmer or colder, magenta and green. Exposure is going to make things brighter or darker, and contrast is going to increase or decrease the distance between our blacks and our whites in this program. I can also go down and just work on affecting just the highlights. So if you see, I can maybe increase the highlights. I can also increase just the whites. And if you look in the upper right hand corner of the histogram, when I hover over whites, it's going to sort of highlight the white, highlight, midtone, shadow, and blacks part of the image. And so maybe I'll bring this black a little bit down. And then I have presence, and presence is going to do a couple things. I can increase the clarity, which is basically just mid-tone contrast. And I actually think clarity goes real wrong real fast, so I tend to leave that alone. Dehaze, I can sort of make things a little bit softer to sort of deal with atmospheric interference. And then I have vibrance and saturation. And saturation is going to increase the intensity of the color. So I can make the color really intense, or I can desaturate or make the color less intense. I can also do that same thing but with vibrance, and that will only affect the colors that exist in the midtones. I would say proceed very cautiously when you deal with vibrance and saturation, because it is one of those tools that can just be overdone. So once I'm happy with that image, I'm going to use my left and right arrow key to go to the next image. This image, I think, is a great example of when to use the crop tool. So I'm going to go into the crop, and I'm going to maybe straighten this out a little bit. I can drag this in on the corners. What I'm going to really suggest is the only way to understand the crop tool is to do it, so I want you guys to practice with it. Once I'm done with the crop, I can close this back down. I can keep my proportions constrained with this little lock tool, and then I could make any sort of other aspect ratio that I want here. So once I'm done with that, I'm going to say close, and it's going to go back, and then now I'm going to continue the editing of this image. We're going to go into the other tools inside this develop right side panel in a future video.